Okay, so this is something that I never do, but I think it would give folks great insight into my strategy for dialing in TRT, the structure of my personal thinking as a TRT coach when dealing with clients trying to dial in sexual function on every ester, and to give you an insight into what I would personally do for myself to dial in a TRT protocol, and in this case, it is with testosterone cypionate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my blood work, okay? This blood work was taken on the 21st of April. It is now the 29th of April. This is current. This is me at steady state, and I'm going to give you my protocol, as well as describe what sexual functions like libido, erections, sensation, climax, while also giving you historical data that led me to know that this protocol would work. I am perfectly dialed in. All right, let's first discuss where I came from. I came from a very simple testosterone cream protocol of 5 clicks of 100 milligram per milliliter cream on the scrotum every day in the morning and 330 IU of HCG every day. That was such a DHT-centric protocol for me that I needed HCG that high to give me enough estrogen to feel good. On that protocol, I felt pretty good throughout the day, not my absolute best. Sexual function was incredible. Like the erections were very, very rigid. I was waking up with them and having them in the middle of the night most nights, and my libido on a scale of 1 to 10 was about an 8.5, not crushing my brain throughout the day and making me unable to focus, but when the time came, my drive was strong. Just as an aside, to take that to a 10 of 10 in libido, I would here and there inject a 40 milligram dose of testosterone cypionate once every 7 days, and then my libido would go into overdrive. So you could always employ hybrid protocols. This is the value in hybrids to increase libido. Next, let's talk about the reason I changed that protocol from cream, which I love, to testosterone cypionate. There were 2 major reasons I changed this protocol. Number 1, increased energy, and number 2, increased anabolism. Those were the targets. On testosterone cream for me, and for short-acting esters generally, I am less anabolic because these things peak and trough. They don't stay in your system consistently. And my energy throughout the day, especially when the trough happens like on cream, later on into the evening starts to decline. And I do prefer feeling amazing at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, sometimes at 8, 9 o'clock at night, there's stuff that I might want to do, which requires energy. At the same time, I weighed going back on a testosterone cycle to try to get close to replicating my peak during the cycle. That cycle made it a lot easier for me to eat more, recomp my body much more toward muscle mass rather than body fat, increase strength progressively, and increase muscle mass progressively. But in the interest of preserving sexual function and not having to go through the rigmarole of taking an AI, I decided against going on a cycle. Okay, so let's talk about my situation and my protocol. First, I'll give you the protocol, and then let's look at the blood work. Okay, my current TRT protocol is 50 milligrams of testosterone cypionate injected subcutaneously in thigh fat every other day. Again, as a coach, I've seen sub-Q not really work for people. If you spread it apart further, it tends to work. But to be clear, sub-Q has actually always worked for me, so long as it's not every day. I am on, it's about 98, 99, but we'll round it to 100. I am on 100 IU of HCG every day. And every morning with a barrage of other supplements that are unrelated, I take 20 milligrams of DHEA. That is my protocol. Now we're going to get into the bloods, but the big question on this protocol, once I've reached steady state, is how do I feel? Well, energy is like 100%. Anabolism, not as high as sports TRT, not as high as the cycle, but substantially better. Like I actually look fuller. It's easier to get a pump that looks insane, and I am a tad bit stronger at the gym compared to testosterone cream. If you're frustrated with TRT and need to dial in specifically libido and erections, energy and anabolism, and fix sexual dysfunction, hire me. I am a coach that has been working for 7 years to fix complex sexual dysfunction on TRT, and you can book me in under a minute at livecortex.com or down in the description of this video. Using testosterone cream is the most advanced thing you can do on TRT, and I created a video course showing you specifically how to dial in libido and erections on test cream, and you can get that also down in the description of this video. But importantly, my energy is incredible from 7 in the morning when I wake up until, at 9, 10 o'clock when I go to sleep. Sexual function. I've got nocturnal erections, 4 of 7 nights of the week. To me, that is sufficient. I do not need to be waking up with ragers every single night. If it happens some nights, that's good. Here's the key part. Erections for penetrative sex. Phenomenal. Without Cialis. So whenever I make a protocol change, I like to remove all the variables that could be influencing one thing or the other. So I removed the 5 milligrams daily Cialis that I was taking. Libido. Hard to put it on a scale, but basically my libido was like this. Every morning from 8 o'clock till about 11 a.m. or right around when I go to the gym at between 11:30 and noon, my libido is bothering me while I'm working, doing business stuff. When I am around my woman, if we are in bed, it is impossible for me to not want to have sex with her. And the libido is so strong then, like if we're, not really clothed in bed together, that it's like for me, it would be really, really hard, and I'd have to execute a lot of discipline and self-control to not want to have sex. The things that are, I wouldn't call it wrong, but not the best with the current protocol in terms specifically of sexual functions, the energy is great, the anabolism is great, would be, although there are a degree of spontaneous EQ throughout the day, that could improve. And of course, I could have, morning and nocturnals 7 nights a week. So I'm going to get to looking at the bloods, how I could do that. I'm very happy with where I am now because everything works and I feel great. And my libido is high, which really, really matters. And erections work great for penetrative sex, but we'll get to how to improve it. Let's look at the bloods. Okay. The first thing I want to do is take us all the way back to 2021. These are not my current bloods. We're going to get to them in just a second. But I used these bloods as a benchmark to determine where I should be now, particularly to keep me in that 30, 35, 40 picograms per milliliter of estradiol, because this level of androgen supports that for me. Above that, erections get flimsy and hard to maintain. Now, this was on 200 milligrams a week of testosterone cypionate. This was every other day intramuscular injections. My total testosterone was 1151 on this. Okay. If you scroll up to the estradiol, this is where I have an important benchmark, which is why I'm always telling people to run to Quest or LabCorp to get labs when you feel good and are dialed in. My estradiol at 1150 test is only 35 picograms per milliliter. This is sensitive. This is the most accurate assay on estradiol for men. So I used that historical blood work knowing that erections and libido were good at that point, but with one variable. There was no HCG in my protocol when I was at 1150 or something and 35 estradiol. So if I'm going to shoot for those same numbers with HCG, the estradiol is going to be higher than 35, but to keep it in that reasonable range, I've got a low dose HCG to achieve that. Again, I'm at about 98 IU a day of HCG. My presumption is that the estradiol would be between 37 and 45 picograms per milliliter and no higher. That's the range for me on like 1,000, 1,100 total tests where everything will work. It starts getting skewed if that estrogen gets to 50, 55. I can still get erections. My libido is okay, but things are just not pretty much perfect. Right now, as they stand, they're pretty much perfect. All right, so let's look at these labs. I've redacted my date of birth and I've redacted my phone number for privacy purposes. This was taken on the 21st of April and reported on the 26th or 28th, whatever that is. I can't actually see it from here. I decided to get high sensitivity C-reactive protein tested. This is an important piece of data that I think every male person wants to know about themselves to determine cardiovascular risk. I think things like D-dimer, doing your own trope, obviously LDL, HDL, apolipoprotein B, these are all factors in the bigger picture of where your cardiovascular function is. And I think to finalize that, you would want to get an actual echocardiogram. So for me, having done all that and everything being in range and being good, high sensitivity CRP, was important for me to know. So it is substantially low. It is optimal if it is below 1.0. So mine's, less than 0.2. So, I mean, it's safe to say that I've got, limited or no cardiovascular risk and extremely non-inflamed state. This is important. All right, so let's have a look at the bloods. where does my total testosterone end me up? This was the immunoassay, so inaccurate to the 50 to 100 nanogram per deciliter range. Sometimes for me, it's been within 30 nanograms per deciliter, so it's really not a huge deal. The critical significance and accuracy of tests in this case is estradiol ultrasensitive. So my total testosterone, this is on the day not injecting as it was prior. To me, that's kind of right in the middle. You're peaking. This is where you're staying, is 1165. So it's 1,165. Now, looking at that number, the estradiol had taken an extra 3-4 days until it was fully reported that testosterone came first. I knew that I was on track to be between low end 30s and high end 45 picograms per milliliter. As you see, albumin 4.7, sex hormone binding globulin 19. That is a very, very good place to be. Listen, if you're at 9, 10, 11, 12, you're also in a good place. When you get below 7, 6, those single digits, that's probably where you might have an issue. Okay, so sex hormone binding globulin is fine. Regarding free tests, I'm only about 40 picograms per milliliter over range, or 60 picograms per milliliter over range. I'm at 288. All right, to me, that is sufficient. I am not pushing the free testosterone super high to the point where I'd have a bunch of free estrogen, which would be mucking up my protocol. Same thing with the bioavailable test. I'm at 617.4 nanograms per deciliter. The top of the range there is 575. So I'm a tad over, but not substantially over, right? It's when you get significantly over on everything where you have to convolute your protocol with the use of aromatase inhibitors, DHT derivatives, maybe some added DHT to try to control the metabolites, taking stuff for lipids, taking stuff for blood pressure and all that kind of crap. And I'm not interested in doing that at this point in my TRT tenure. All right, estradiol ultrasensitive, 43 picograms per milliliter. 43. Now, I have some historical blood work to show me that being in the mid 900s, so it's like 940, 945 nanograms per deciliter total testosterone, and estradiol being at 30, that is also a substantially good state for me. Energy is good, anabolism is good, sexual function is great, libido is great, erection quality is great. At 1165, which is a little higher than mid 900s, I can tolerate like an additional 13 picograms per milliliter of estradiol. That's it. My window is very narrow, like a lot of people's. Again, I hit 50. I can still function sexually. My libido actually drops up there, which is counter to a lot of people's experiences. The more estradiol, the more libido for some folks. For other folks, it just drops. And up there, erection quality is fine for sex, but quite honestly, for me to feel 100% confident at 50, 55, 5 milligrams Cialis is really what I need to do. So what this shows us is for me, I'm right on the borderline. That estradiol creeps up another 7 points, then I'm going to have to convolute my protocol by adding some other things, i.e. Cialis, potentially even some Proviron. But as it stands, like with those bloods, I feel great. I function great. Look, if you need to dial in permanently on TRT, get Mastering Libido and Erections on TRT, the sexual function playbook, which covers every ester with strategic protocols to show you how to dial in libido, erections, sensation, and climax of testosterone. It is down in the description of this video. It's an instant download, and it can be yours instantly. I have a raging libido in the morning, and then when I'm with my chick, especially like if we're in bed, and that's every day. There's not a day that goes by that my libido isn't bothering me. So let's look at these labs and look at those things that are not exactly 10 of 10. The first of them being nocturnal erections, morning erections, and spontaneous erections. Again, I get them all, but not every day. If I wanted to get them every day, the simple addition to my protocol right now would be to start 12.5 milligrams of Proviron every day. That's all I'd need to do. The estrogen would get down to 35, 33, 37 or so. There'd be more of a dihydrotestosterone-like signal at the androgen receptor locally at penile tissues, and I'd have ragers throughout the day. I'd have ragers every single night. My libido would stay unchanged. And that would solve that problem. But I do not need to do that. I am very, very comfortable with where I'm at. So which brings up a point. I mean, you don't have to have nocturnals every night. You shouldn't use that as a benchmark for success of TRT. It is healthy to have them a good degree of the 7-day week. Alternatively, if I wanted to get the estrogen signaling down just a little bit, which would give more ragers, more nocturnal, I'd take about 1 milligram of DHT just dropped transdermally in the morning every other day. it provide the same kind of thing. You know, it would take estrogen down on the serum potentially, but it would block the estrogen signaling enough to make me feel like I'm around that 30 mark, which is really, really good for everything. But I don't care. You know, like that would induce a degree of hair thinning for me personally, would be very manageable, but it's just not something I care about at the moment. Again, I don't need ragers when I'm trying to work throughout the day, and I don't need them every single night when I'm trying to sleep. Sometimes they hurt. Last point on this, one could look at this and argue, well, if you reduce the dose to call it 45 milligrams every other day instead of 50 milligrams every other day. Again, I'm on 175 milligrams a week of total cypionate. Yes, the estrogen would then go down to the 35 range, and I would get those other things back. But keep in mind, if you do that, you're also reducing the androgen load, which affects erections, libido, etc. You know, reducing the dose for me at this point, because my libido is so strong, that is very important to me. Assuming erections work, a raging libido on TRT is really, really important. It all depends on what's important for you. Some people like to sit at 25 estradiol and they've just got raging erections, and libido is fine, but it's not driving them all day, and they don't think about it, and it doesn't bother them. I like to be on the other end of that spectrum where the erections are fine for sex. I get random spontaneous ones, nocturnal ones, not every day, but my libido is very high. This is really important for me. At the same time, the anabolism, the energy, again, at 9 p.m., I feel as energized as I do at like 3 p.m. I'm a sustainable energy beast from the moment I wake up until the moment I go to bed. And I truly enjoy life like that, especially as an entrepreneur. All right, so what are the critical takeaways that, again, I've learned in coaching people over the years and looking at all this stuff and manipulating protocols to get good sexual function? One of the first major critical takeaways that I hope you remember, that I want you to take away from this video, is I have benchmarks for when things were good. So I know the ranges that I need to be in on estradiol relative to total testosterone and free testosterone. I know that I do best a little bit above the range on free test and bioavailable test, and a little bit above the range on total test. I know that with an adequate amount of HCG, that's going to take me into the 35, 40, 43 in this case, range of estradiol ultra sensitive, but it isn't a game stopper for me personally, so long as the androgens are up there. However, if I needed the ragers 7 days a week and for it to be bothering me and all that, I feel like I was 16 again, then yes, I'd be taking Proviron at 12.5 milligrams a day. And if that failed, to be 25 milligrams a day. The critical distinction, though, is I've got benchmarks for this. Those are the ranges that with cream, with prop, with enanthate, where I know I feel my best. If you know that, you can replicate this on anything. The only difference on any ester, the only difference is the pharmacokinetic profile will be different. So you might not consistently be in the great window, because with prop at the 18-hour mark, it starts troughing. You wake up the next morning, you are lower. For me, I do get a degree of peak and trough because I'm running every other day injections, but aside from that minor peak and trough, I'm pretty much at the same levels at a good degree of the time, most of the time. And this is the kind of thing that has taken me many, many years to understand, that with bodies that are different and may require different ranges, have different pharmacokinetic responses to certain esters of testosterone, how to dial people in terms of libido, erections, energy, anabolism, well-being on TRT through coaching. Listen, guys, if you want to dial in permanently and fix the libido and erection issues, the sexual issues, while still maintaining the anabolism and the energy, this is what I do. The April intake discounted window will be over in 2 days or so. You've got one more chance, those of you thinking of getting on board for a discounted rates. There are 5 slots left. Prices will go back to their original price, or I'm going to take coaching down for about a month and some change, maybe even 2 months. The single session consult will be available at that time throughout. If you need to get on board in the coaching at a discounted rate, this is your last chance. If you are on our email list, I will email you this coming weekend that this is the last opportunity for another 6 months or so. All right, boys, going at it alone sometimes, while challenging, is fruitful, and you learn a lot. Listen, if you need to experiment with a bunch of different compounds, just get sourceless. Anything you can think of, just master your TRT protocol with whatever it is you need, okay? Down below. All the logic that I have used to dial thousands of men in on TRT on every ester was put into a digital playbook for specifically mastering libido and erections on TRT, the sexual function playbook. You can get that down in the description. Download it now and start executing now. There are 2 video courses worth looking at. If you're trying to dial in on test cream, I created a video course specifically for dialing in sexual function on test cream. Okay, it's in front of you here. Also down below. Lastly, I created a reciprocal course on testosterone cypionate. Okay, this is a video course of me breaking down the logic of how to dial in steel rod erections and teenage level libido on cypionate down below. All right, my brother in test. It's been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. Do me a favor. If you enjoyed any part of this or got any value, it would mean the world to me if you would just like the video. Otherwise, sub to the channel. We are a rapidly growing channel with a lot of content about TRT in the past and so much more to come. If anything resonated with you here, I'd love to have you on board, bro. I'll see you in the comments section. I actually do respond to comments. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you with a video that I think will tie this all together that I would love for you to just take the time to watch. All right, so I'm going to put it on the screen. Click on that video, bro. Trust me, the value in what I am saying here is going to be significant. Otherwise, kick ass, rock on, enjoy the rest of your day. Much more content coming this week. And bro, I'll talk to you on the next one.